Grab a cup of tea or a glass of wine and tune in for Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy. On Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern, Linda creates sacred space for leading female luminaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. A soulful venue where guests openly share the fears and obstacles they've overcome, wisdom and lessons learned, and the personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic, soulful living.
Welcome to Inspired Conversations. This is your host, Linda Joy, publisher of Aspire magazine and the best-selling publisher at Inspired Living Publishing. I'm so honored that you've joined me for today's inspiring show. Have you ever thought about who you really are and why you're here? Most of us share the understanding that life is about more than the experience of body and mind, and that it takes a special kind of courage, soul courage, to also engage one's soul in our daily encounters. And today we'll be talking about just that with my special guest, Tara-jenelle Walsch, about the soul courage path and how to move past self-discovery to self-expression and then at last to full connection. Tara-jenelle is the founder and spirit behind the Soulebrate greeting card company, cards that are sold worldwide and feature Tara's original designs and personal messages of encouragement and empowerment, as well as specialty designs created for best-selling authors such as Tony Robbins, Byron, and Neale Walsch. She's also the creator of the Socialized Personal Development Program. Tara-jenelle speaks publicly about building emotional and energetic awareness and the wonders of living soul first, which she believes, from her personal experience, which you're going to hear more about in a moment, has the ability to enrich the world at large. Welcome, sweetie. How are you?
Hi, how are you? Nice to be here. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. A lot of my listeners know through this show and through my brands that I'm all about authentic connection, and that I truly believe, and that's what all my books are about, that when women share their truth with vulnerability and authenticity, that we can inspire transformation in others. And like so many of my guests, your story began the journey to the work you're doing now in the world. So let's start there. Let's talk about your path.
Yeah, well, you're right. That's usually where the awakening starts, isn't it, with our stories. My path started years ago when I was really, really deep and down and depressed, and I had a severe eating disorder for about 7 years. I was just in this major, deep and painful spiral. And I was admitted to the hospital, Johns Hopkins Hospital in Baltimore, and I was there for about 2 months. And, you know, they do all kinds of things to help you, make you eat, basically, put you on medication, even if you don't want to be put on it, and counseling and all these different things. But I found that my true healing didn't even begin until I was released from the hospital, until I stepped foot from the hospital doors. And when I did, something significantly interesting happened to me. It was as though I was in a long movie, a matinee in the middle of the day, and I was just sitting there entrenched in a story for hours, and then I walked out into the bright sunlight with all the traffic moving and all the people hustling again. It felt like that same kind of experience, you know, when you it's just surreal. You're like, oh, okay, back to the world again, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. I had that experience, but like 100 times over. And if for some reason everything was enhanced, everything was intensified, my feelings, my intuition, the way I perceived people. And I looked around and I noticed that way over half, I was going to say half the world, but I would even gamble to say 85% of the world was doing what I had been doing pre-hospital. They were hiding their feelings. They were numbing out with one thing or another. Perhaps it wasn't food. Maybe it was alcohol or smoking or overworking. Maybe, you know, today, in this day and age, it could even be something as simple as Facebooking, you know, or incessant texting, you know, just not being present with life, just hiding, cloaking. And I noticed everywhere people were doing this. And I just thought, oh my gosh, does anyone see what I see? Is this really how we're living? So that's how it all started. That's how the egg got cracked initially for me.
And what was your next step? In other words, so you had the cracking open, as you said. How did you know what your next step was, or did you just keep following the signs?
Well, I followed my intuition, and I found that the more since I was in such a raw state, I was expressing and I was feeling and expressing from the most genuine place and the most real and live and raw and gentle place from within. And I noticed that the more I did that, it just invoked different responses from people. Some people shunned because they couldn't handle it, but more so, a lot of people opened up. And so I began to discover a path, which I now call the sacred formula, which is basically and simply what I dub as the sacred formula, which is feel, express, connect. And I discovered that the more I allowed myself to feel everything fully, identify those feelings, what is it I'm feeling, and to feel them fully, whatever they were, whether it was pain or joy or bliss or sadness or fear or doubt, just to feel it fully and then to step into the full expression of it. I discovered that when I did both of those things, I invariably always created a connection within myself, a connection with the universe, life, energy, and more importantly, a connection with others whenever it was expressed, face to face. So that was my big discovery. And I doubted it for a large part of the beginning. I was like, this is just too simple. Really? Feel, express, connect? I mean, what's so profound about this? But I did some testing, which I talk about in my book. I was like, well, let me give this a shot on people I know and see if I'm really up to something. And in fact, I was. In fact, the response in which I got from my mother and my friends and then perfect strangers was immeasurable to what I had conceived of. Just people were hungry for it. They were starving for it. And when I gave them space to talk and I felt within them and allowed them to express, our connection was deepened. So that was my big aha. That was my revelation.
I'll tell you, as you know from our personal conversations, I took your book, Soul Courage, on my recent vacation to Puerto Rico. And there's a section, it's actually the definition, it's in chapter 11 on what we're talking about, which is connect. And it was the definition of socialize. And I was like, because the first time I saw you use that word, I'm like, oh, it just spoke to me. And that's what attracted me to you, and that's how we connected. And it says the act of fully and genuinely connecting with ourselves, others, and life, with the mind, body, and soul activated in unison by intentionally engaging in the full expression of our feelings. I have to tell you, when I read that, it touched me. I get so emotional. It touched me so deeply because that's what's missing.
Yeah.
That is what's missing. And I think in all our lives until we wake up, and I'll be honest, reading that day on the beach, I was like, whoa, am I fully present each time, in each conversation, in each moment of the day? So your book served as a sacred reminder for me. And as you know from when I reached out to you, it's you just said it. It's so simple. Your formula.
Mm-hmm.
That's what makes it so powerful. Does that make sense? It's not out of reach for anyone.
Yes.
And see, everyone's always looking for the big aha, and I'm like, are you kidding me? This is so simple, which means anyone can do it, which means it works, and that means transformation will take place.
That's right. And, there's been a lot of talk about presence. It seems to be the new buzzword. And honestly, I don't believe that it's humanly possible to be present in every waking moment.
No.
But to have an awareness around the presence, which is different, being present and being aware are two different things. And to have an awareness around when we are being present and that we are at least mostly present, seeing and experiencing what is currently in front of us, that right there is enriching. But why don't we all do it? Why don't we all feel, express, and connect? That was another question I asked myself and that I asked the readers in my book. If it is this simple, why isn't everyone doing it? And you want to know what my answer is?
No, I was just going to ask. I'm curious to know because, as you said, it's so simple. Please share.
Oh, because we're scared. We are scared. Well, at least I'll experience, I'll respond from my own experience. I was scared. When I look back now on how I numbed my life out and all the masks and cloaks I used to wear to hide my true self, to, quote, protect. I thought I was protecting. I thought I was safe. But I was in more danger, I think. Danger's a little exaggeration, but I wasn't safe. You're safe when you come out, when you're vulnerable, when you connect with others and you're reminded that they're just like you. And you feel that amazing oneness. That is where the safety is for me. And but people don't do it, I believe, because we're scared. And it does take courage to move through those doubts and those fears and to move into a place of knowing and willingness to even have that, to believe that we deserve it.
Oh, deservedness, a big thing, especially for women. And I want to dive deeper into this conversation, and next I want to talk about what the meaning of soul courage is to you. But let's take a moment right now to go to commercial break, and we will be right back with Tara-jenelle Walsch of soulcourage.com.
A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Inspiration for a woman's soul. Aspire Magazine, inspiring and supporting women on the path of self-discovery. Claim your free digital subscription today, which includes access to thousands of dollars of personal development bonus gifts from Team Inspiration partners. Claim your Aspire Magazine subscription today at subscribetoaspire.com.
OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
The truth is, you can't change the world if you're broke. I know, I tried. Isn't it time you turned your life's calling into a profitable, freedom-based business? I'm Michelle Barr. Join me every Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern for Sacred Success.
Me, a cat, moving in with a new human. It took a little getting used to. She has these weird games she likes to play, like this giant feather. She sticks it in my face. I swat it away. She sticks it in my face. I swat it away. It's almost like she thinks I enjoy it. But seeing how much fun she gets out of it, well, I guess it makes it all worth it. Humans.
A person is the best thing to happen to a shelter pet. Be that person. Adopt. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org.
A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Welcome back to Inspired Conversations with host Linda Joy and my special guest, Tara-jenelle Walsch, author of Soul Courage, and you can learn more at soulcourage.com. So right before the break, Tara, we were talking about being afraid to be vulnerable, being afraid to be authentic. But I don't know about you, but what I found on my journey, it took so much more energy to hide behind the false masks that I had carried, especially into my late 30s. It takes so much more energy to live inauthentically than it does to follow the calling of my soul and to show up fully. Did you find that also?
No. Absolutely. Are you kidding? And that is why there is so much freedom, I experienced so much freedom when I just, soul rendered is what I call, when I just allowed myself to roll into feeling more and to expressing those feelings. And, something that propelled all of this, other than my experience in the hospital, but was my major aha moment. I call it life support realization. And that was the moment at which was after my eating disorder experience, the moment at which I realized, oh my God, there's way more to life than working Monday through Friday. There's way more to life than my body and how thin I should be, or how much money I'm making, or if I'm ever going to have children, or that's not life. That's not who I am. I just started looking at my hands saying, I'm not me. I'm not my body. I'm not even my mind. I am a soul inside of this physical body. And the moment I realized that, it sounds so, we're preaching to the choir now. The people that are listening are obviously mostly all on the same path, but this was years ago when I got that whole realization of that I am a soul in a physical body. And it changed my entire experience of people and life and myself. And it also it allowed me to activate my soul courage. Soul courage is about daring to be and own all of yourself without shame or judgment, apology, excuses, hiding, hindering. It's about just fully stepping into your true self and feeling into the living of your life. And the great thing is that everyone has soul courage. And everyone has soul courage because everyone is a soul, and this soul encompasses all of life. But there's a difference I realized when I was experiencing all this and all this came to me. There was a difference between having soul courage and being courageous. If we all have soul courage, it can just be there in hibernation. But being courageous is when we activate it. And that was another important realization, I have this within me. I am a soul in a physical body. And I have soul courage. And I know how to activate it by allowing myself to just fully feel whatever it is in the moment without denying myself or putting a cork in it or, being seen, not heard, or all the things that we were taught to do when we were younger. But the opposite, living inside out.
It's one of my favorite terms, when I first found you and went to your website, and that was right there on your masthead, living from the inside out. I'm like, yes. Because Aspire magazine, I've been saying that. Aspire for 10 years has been about encouraging women to live from the inside out, because society and the world is bombarding us with the exact opposite message. Yeah. And I didn't heal until I went inward for my answers and for my own value instead of looking in the outside world. So I love that phrase. Now, how can we obtain soul courage? Is there, I know it's accessible to us because it's the essence of who we are, but are there things that you have done with your clients and to define it, steps?
Well, the sacred formula, which, maybe we shouldn't have released so early on in the conversation, but that is how I activated my courageousness. So, because by living through the sacred formula, not with as though it's separate from us, but through it as though it is part of who we are, and actually moving through our days feeling and being aware that we're feeling and identifying what we're feeling, and then expressing in some way, even if we're completely alone. You know what I mean? By singing if we're cheerful, or crying if we're not, or whatever our experience is in the moment, by expressing that. That is, like I said, where the connection is, which takes courage to move through all those steps. And you can take this into real-life experiences with other people as well, which invariably you'll probably run through challenges, but I discuss a lot of the challenges that we face when we do that in my book. But, speaking with people and actually feeling with them their experience that they're sharing, or your experience that you're sharing, that kind of thing. Like living through this sacred formula is what takes courage and is what activates it.
And I want to say the steps again. It was feel, express, connect. So when you first started using what you now call the formula, but at the time you were just living your truth,
Right.
When you started showing up differently in your long-term relationships, whether it was your parents, siblings, friends, with this new intention and presence, how was it received? Because I want to be honest with our listeners. How was it received when you showed up in your full truth?
First, well, people were a little bit, I don't want to say in disbelief because that sounds very grandiose and exaggerated, but they didn't quite know how to take it. And as consistent as I was with it, because it just became my new way of being, I just vowed that I was not going to relapse. I was not only going to not relapse with my eating disorder, but the old behavior as a whole, my way of thinking, that led to the eating disorder, that led to depression to begin with, all of that, I vowed not to relapse to. So when I walked out of the hospital, I came out, if you will. I feel like for the first time since I was a very little girl that I allowed myself to be seen, my true self. And as I said, people at first were a little nervous, like they'd get nervous because they didn't know what to do with it. Sometimes people would get giddy, and a lot of times people would cry. Even if I was just holding space for them, they would just start crying and just feel like it was a gift. Just feel into the moment, because it's so seldomly felt these days. And at first, of course, I thought, oh, wow, I'm special. My ego is getting the best of me. Everyone loves me, and they're really touched by me. But then I said, no, come on now. This is life.
This is love. It was like you were tapped into the essence of love, which is the essence of the soul, which is the essence of all that is.
Absolutely. Because I believe that the soul knows all there is to know on a conceptual level, but that it comes to physical form so that it can have the experience of it, so it can feel it all. So I was just organically moving in that direction and just bringing people with me, if you will. And even strangers, just, it's like a nonverbal, you don't have to say what you're doing. You can just do it, and people understand if it's done with sincerity and genuine approach. People, it's like you're extending your hand. People get it, and you're inviting them to come out too. That's like the beauty of it. Like you were talking about earlier, Linda, about being authentic, and then other people are that way. It's like that amazing two-way magic.
It's because I believe when we all show up as individuals authentically and, in being vulnerable, that we give permission for those in our, in our circle to do the same. It's like this unspoken trust just happened. It's like, whoa, if Tara can be vulnerable, then maybe I can open up to be. So I think every time a woman like you or myself or any of the guests that have been on this show, when we share from this place of truth, I just feel like ripples go out into the world and empower others to do the same. And I know for you and we want the same thing. We want everyone to feel what we feel in our hearts and our spirits and feel and live from this place.
Yeah, and the amazing thing is it doesn't even have to just be people in our circle.
No.
When I go out throughout the days and sometimes, I'm not even really aware of it anymore, but in the beginning I would make it my mission to touch a stranger's life, at least one. Now I go out and I'm just like, I can't help myself. Even if it's something as small as just looking in their eyes or actually using their name that's on their name badge or commending them for the service they're doing or something that is extending the process of connecting with one another through feeling and expressing some form. And it just lights people up. I have people saying, bye, have a great day. Some people say, you're really, are you in town? Let's get together for coffee. It just opens your world up.
Yeah, and it's funny because I get the same thing you must get. Are you always so happy? Because when you acknowledge people and validate and just look them, as you said, in the eyes, people feel heard. They feel your love. That's what I think. It's like you're connecting essence to essence, not body to body.
But I do want to address on something that you just said. I'm always not happy. And I don't, and this sacred formula and soul courage for that matter as a whole is not about always being happy.
It's about feeling what you feel and being real about it.
That's right.
Yeah, that's what I got from your book. It was like, don't judge your feelings. Allow them, process them. And that was a powerful message that I took from your book, was because so many are, I don't want to, it's not a judgment call, but there's a lot of teachings out there. Be happy, judge your negative thoughts.
Oh my God, it's such a trigger for me.
Yeah, and it's okay to be aware because you can't change what you're not aware of. And that's how I've changed my life and my mode of thinking. But not when it goes to the opposite extreme where it becomes a judgment and we're constantly judging ourselves for the negative emotions. That's when it becomes harmful and doesn't do ourselves.
Then we put those cloaks on. We start pretending we're happy because we think, then people will approve of me. So then we put these masks on, these happiness masks on, thinking, fake it till you make it, like everyone says. And then there we go, hiding our true selves, living in a false, world, a false sense of an illusional state,
And that's what causes all the issues to begin with. And before we head to break, when we come back from break, I should say, I want to talk about what's a decision every single person in the world is always facing. And we'll be back in a moment with Tara-jenelle Walsch of SoulCourage.com.
Free your mind. Expand your soul. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Do you love, accept, and respect the woman you see in the mirror? You are a goddess. But do you treat yourself as one in every area of your life? Are you taking care of you? Or are you last on your to-do list, if you're on it at all? It's time to take off the Superwoman cape and awaken your inner goddess. Psychologist and body love expert Mary Pritchard is passionately dedicated to empowering today's women to heal their relationships with food, their body, and themselves, along with reconnecting with their inner goddess, stepping through perceived fears, and embracing the truth of who they are. Visit drmarypritchard.com to learn more about Dr. Mary's Body Love Group program, private coaching, sacred goddess circles, and to schedule a complimentary chat. drmarypritchard.com.
A philanthropic organization. Their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
This is Terry Van Horn, and I want to invite you to join me for my weekly radio show, Healing Light, on OMTimes Radio every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. On Healing Light, we want to bring love, light, and blessings into your world. You can find out more about us at www.healinglightonline.com. Blessings.
The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
This is OTR FM, part of the IOM Radio Network.
Welcome back to Inspired Conversations with host Linda Joy and my special guest, Tara-jenelle Walsch. And today we're talking about soul courage, living authentically, and so much more. So, Tara, right before the break, I asked you, what is a decision every single person in the world is always facing?
Every single person, every single waking person, I'll say, that's awake, in the world, not just next to you or in your town or that you know, in the world, is making and facing this exact same decision at this exact same time, actually, I will go out on a limb to say. And that decision is, how much of me am I willing to share? How much of me am I willing to share with myself? Am I willing to actually feel my feelings? Or am I going to cloak them or numb them out or distract myself with one thing or another or create a resistance technique so that I can, not have to deal? And how much of me am I willing to share with others? Will I look them in the eyes? Will I express myself to them? Will I be vulnerable? Will I let them be vulnerable with me? So that is the question that I believe we're all facing at the same time. How much of me am I willing to share? And it's actually a beautiful realization because it invites opportunity. And I don't mean it to invite shame, like, oh, I'm not, but rather to invite opportunity into, yeah, I want to share more. I want to live out. I don't want to be hidden anymore.
So beautiful. I'm a visual person. I can just energetically see the difference of how you show up in the world when you ask yourself this question, right? Because when you're being fully present and being you with no mask, you show up quite differently than when you're in a conversation. You're watching everything you say because you're afraid of being vulnerable. It's a big difference. And I'm sure we've all had conversations with someone where they weren't being quite authentic or real or open, and you could feel that energetic wall between you.
Oh, absolutely. But to me, that's an invitation to invite them. I just remind them who they are again. And just like we were discussing a moment ago, how to do that? By being it, by leading by example, by sharing who I am, and then they can let their guard down. Because I don't think people were walking around on purpose, consciously, like, I don't want to share, except for sometimes when we're not having a good day or, if we're going through something personal, we may be conscious about it. But other than that, it's just, we think we're protecting ourselves. It's almost like some survival mechanism we think we have in place.
And that's, it becomes so much a part of us because we're surrounded by it in society, all the falseness, all the fakeness. And so we don't even realize we're disconnected from our authentic self and our vulnerability because maybe in some cases, I know that was true for my case, I didn't have anyone to mirror it back to me. Mm-hmm. And so once I got on this path, about 25 years ago, and I now see my role is, oh no, let me be the one that holds up the mirror for another woman. Because I didn't have that. Does that make sense? So I want my brands, I want my message, I want how I show up in relationships to be exactly that, lead by example.
Absolutely. And I believe we take turns throughout life. I don't believe that, one day we're leaders and that's all we're doing.
No.
And every moment, provides us with a unique, experience. And we can't, think about anticipating what that might be or how we may feel about it. So
we just have to keep showing up.
That's right.
With a wide open heart. So a moment ago you mentioned the term resistance technique. So what does that mean? What's a resistance technique?
Well, I dubbed it resistance technique because this is when I realized that I was just distracting myself from myself for years. And what my resistance technique was food, the withholding of it and the abusing of it, anorexia and bulimia both. And that was what I was using to resist life, resist reality, resist being present, resist feeling, resist connecting with my true self. So, but it could be anything. As I was saying earlier, it could be something like an eating disorder. It could be alcohol. It could be smoking, or it could be something that looks completely innocent, like, excessive texting or being on Facebook all the time or overworking. I mean, people will say, well, he's just working hard for the family. Is he? Or, I don't know why I'm saying he. It could just as easily be a woman.
Yeah.
Or is that person hiding behind that because they believe it's safer there? They won't have to show up in a more intimate way, in a more true way. So those are the types of things that I call resistance techniques. And I believe that we just kind of use them as a distraction.
Oh, I believe that. And I love that you brought up the difference, because a lot of people think, well, I don't have an addiction. It's not an eating disorder. I don't drink. I don't go out. Mm-hmm. But there are so many other ways, especially in today's fast-paced world in technology, where you disconnect from those around you on that soul-to-soul level, because your relationships are through technology.
Oh my God, I know. Go to
and
any
not human connection.
Yeah, right. Everyone's got their phone in their laps. No one's even looking at each other. So it's just bizarre.
And the sad part is we're raising a generation of young children, because Dana and I were out to eat maybe 3 weeks ago, and right behind us was a young couple, maybe 30s, early 30s, with, I'd say, a 5 and a 3-year-old. Now, my back, I couldn't see them, but my back was right up against their booth. And I remember saying to myself, I haven't heard that man say one word. The mother didn't say much either, but that man, the husband, father, did not say one word. And I would hear the little girls. I could tell they were drawing, and they kept going, Daddy, 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 look at this, look at that. And I could see my honey, who is facing them, I could see his heart breaking. I should say I could feel it. And he didn't say anything to me in the restaurant. We got up, and now I could turn and see the whole family, and my heart broke, because the looks on these little girls' faces, here was both parents at each end of the table with a phone in their hand, these children yearning for connection, to someone to look at their pictures, just to acknowledge their being, and they would rather be on their phone texting or whatever it was they were doing. There was no connection. Dana and I got so emotionally wounded from witnessing that, saying, what are these children going to grow up believing? That if you can't feel connected and worthy of your own parents' time and presence, what is that saying to these little girls? And I can still feel my emotions, because we're raising a generation of children who are going to yearn for connection. And where are they going to find it if they can't find it within their own families?
That's why it's so important, to make the dedication as, aware adults, to pass down the importance of connection, the importance of, talking and looking at each other and hugging each other and laughing and crying and not feeling shame around crying. The importance of all of it. And if we don't have children, or even if we do, to do it with the younger generation as a whole, with other children, regardless whether they're ours or not. Because it's not, this new way of living is not acceptable. It really isn't. Not to me.
No, it's raising emotionally and spiritually disconnected children, and that just, it's sad. It breaks my heart. And when you witness it and you can feel the energy, because I'm an empath, so I could feel what was happening at the table, even though I couldn't see it. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah.
And it was coming through my back, and I could feel it watching Dana's eyes, and I knew what was going on. But to turn around and see those children and the yearning in their eyes, like, hi, look at me, see me, speak to me, that's how they were looking at Dana and I.
Yeah.
And so we took that split second to say, beautiful picture, and say hi to them. And here we are, strangers. We gave them that one moment of connection, which I believe is what we're here to do.
Right.
And it's not a judgment on the parents. It's a judgment really on society of what's happening, and we have to do our work as individuals to stop it.
Yeah, and perhaps it's not even a judgment. Perhaps it's just a noticement and an urgency to shift the train track, to do whatever they do where it then has a fork, and instead of going down to the left, it goes to the right before it's too late, and to all band together to commit and to make the commitment that is deeply important.
It is so important. And one of the other things I wanted to talk about, too, because we've already discussed the sacred formula, which is feel, express, and connect. And you've tested it with friends and family, as you said. And now it's part of what you speak about, what your book is about, what your teachings are about in your program. So that is the core essence of everything you teach now, is the sacred formula.
Yes.
And I love that. And the name of it you called Socialize is the name of your program, and it includes all of everything that we talked about today.
Socialize is the connection step. You know, it expands on the connection step, and I actually have guides that just when brought up allow the person to understand what socializing is more and guide them through it. And I'll just say what those guides are, you know, briefly. It's willingness, and because everything starts with willingness. Obviously, you know, even having the willingness to be willing is willing. And vulnerability, which we talked about earlier, which I love. Vulnerability is one of the best things in the world, because that's basically, it's who we truly are. If you think about it, being vulnerable means basically just being us.
Exactly. Exactly.
And then the third guide is gratitude, because gratitude itself keeps us present. I mean, the mere fact that we are acknowledging something in the moment reminds us that we are in that moment. And intention, because without intention, then life would be aimless and scattered. We would just be all over the place. So when we create intention, then we're purposely putting out that we want to connect or what we want to bring into our life. And then finally, presence, which is how we began this call. You know, seeing and experiencing what's currently in front of us and truly connecting with ourselves and others through that.
When we come back from a break, I want to talk more about those. It's like 5 principles, you know, life principles. So we'll be back in a moment with Tara-jenelle Walsch of soulcourage.com.
A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Are you tired of waiting for the right time to live your purpose, shine your light, and share your sacred gifts with the world? Purpose and success coach Stacey Curnow, also known as the midwife for your life, remembers that feeling well. She left a thriving 20-year career as a nurse midwife to successfully and passionately help women give birth to their big dreams. If you are a purpose-driven, spirit-led woman who is ready to break free from your fears and doubts and create a life and business you absolutely love, stop by Stacey's blog at staceycurnow.com for empowering resources, inspiring content, and to schedule a complimentary Live on Purpose discovery session.
Are you trying to get from point A to point B and need a little advice? Connect with the counselors at OMTimes Advisors. Whether you're looking for a life coach or a spiritual intuitive, the advisors participating at advisors.omtimes.com were carefully chosen based on their gifts, skills, and professionalism. OMTimes Advisors, connecting you with the best advisors in the business.
Do you have time to read that inspiring book or that blog post you've been meaning to get to? In your busy world, how do you improve yourself and keep your life going? I'm Lisa Kay, and my Between Heaven and Earth radio show can transform your life just by listening. Be uplifted with inspiring topics, positive stories, and ideas that really work. Between Heaven and Earth radio is conscious living for your soul, every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time.
The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Welcome back to Inspired Conversations with Linda Joy. We're going to continue our conversation as we come to a close on this show, but I want to dive in with Tara about what we ended on the break, which was the socialized portion of her teachings, which are willingness, vulnerability, gratitude, intention, and presence. So that is the connection part of your socialized program, which is part of the Feel, Express, Connect. And every single one, like two of them, like gratitude, I'm reading them going, wow, all of these are present in my life, especially gratitude. I start and end every day with a little gratitude ritual I've been doing for 20 years, and I've said it for years. It was one of the keys that helped me change my life.
Oh, my God, yes, absolutely. And, an example of how to, a lot of people say, well, I'm grateful, but, there's a difference between saying you're grateful and actually feeling gratitude on purpose, bringing it into your life deliberately. And I give an example of how to do that. That's, any person in the world can do to feel gratitude on purpose, and that is to just do what I call a visual visit. Just stop whatever you're doing. If you feel frustrated or if you feel hurt or if you feel anything, to just stop what you're doing and take a deep breath and just look around the room, wherever you are. Look around the room and see that, wow, I'm okay. I'm surrounded by four walls, or I'm in nature with these beautiful trees, or there's my pet lying there, and I love him so. Or look at, all the abundance around me. And instantly, for me, it opens my heart and reminds me all that I am and all I have to be grateful for, and takes me out of the agitation or the fear or the whatever I was in. And have you had that experience too? Yeah,
because I believe it's like you. It's not words. Oh, I'm grateful. It's an energy. It's an essence. Like you can feel it when you're truly grateful. It's a feeling, not a statement. That's the only way I know how to describe what it feels like in my heart. It's even the simple things, right? Walking outside and not just rushing to your car going, wow, I'm grateful for the breeze on my face. It's the first time I've felt warm air in 4 months. That, to me, is feeling gratitude.
Yeah, and we can express gratitude, too, from that deep place of feeling. I'm not just talking about saying thank you to someone, but maybe touching their shoulder or grabbing their hand or just looking in their eyes and saying, thank you so much. You really helped me. Or what you just said really made a difference, or thanking them for whatever, but taking a moment to pause and bring them into your presence bubble and thank them. That is like expression from the, most beautiful place of feeling. They'll feel it, and half the time they cry. Well, when I do it anyway.
And isn't it funny, too, we have become a society that, thank you, but there's no meaning behind it. There's no connection when you say it to the person. It's become rote. And really, if you're on the receiving end of that, it doesn't really mean much in comparison to what you just shared, which is touching them, looking them in the eye, and truly being present when you thank them. That is true gratitude.
Yeah, and maybe it doesn't even have to look like something so grandiose. Maybe it can just look like when you had a great dinner, you leave and you just stop for a moment and ask for the manager, or you say, are you the manager? And he says, yeah. And you say, just want to take a moment to thank you. I had a wonderful experience. The waitress was great. The food was delicious and the atmosphere was beautiful. Thank you for providing that. Boom. I mean, everyone feels seen and heard and great and filled with gratitude. You walk out feeling full, and it could be as simple as that.
I love it because I'm visualizing that one moment that it took you to do that creates such a shift of energy in the person on the receiving end that then that person then goes to the next person. Do you see what I mean? It creates this
domino
ripple
effect.
Yeah.
Domino effect, yep.
I love that.
Love it. I do too.
So is there a piece of wisdom? We have probably about another minute as we come to a close of our conversation. Is there a piece of wisdom or guidance that you are feeling led to share, or a tip?
Well, I guess what I would share is to remind, listeners that you're not alone. And I say that being a woman that lives alone completely and has lived alone for years. But I may feel lonely sometimes, but I know I'm not alone. And to remind yourself that through what I call creating a soul team. And I think we all have soul teams, but we just never really thought of it that way. But the people in your lives that you know are on a similar path, maybe not a similar path as in what you're doing in life, but that you resonate with deeply. And you want nothing but their best interest, and they want nothing but yours. And there are several people that could be members of your family. They could just be people that you see out in the world that somehow when you see them, you always have this great connection. They could be your friends, or they can be anyone. But to just remind yourself you're not alone, and to surround yourself with your soul team as much as you can along your way through your journey. And that, I believe, will help support you in being courageous and living from your soul, living, from your true self.
What a beautiful statement to bring our call and our show to an end. And what a wonderful reminder for everyone to take that piece of wisdom in and put it into action. Tara, I want to thank you for being here, and I want to invite our listeners to learn more about you and the Soul Courage book by visiting soulcourage.com. And while you're there, you'll also see a link to learn more about the gorgeous line of greeting cards called Soulebrate that are freaking gorgeous, never mind inspirational. And it's all Tara's original artwork. I have them right in front of me, actually. And they're gorgeous. So, again, that's soulcourage.com. And I want to thank you for joining me for Inspired Conversations with Linda Joy. Listen in every Tuesday at 2 p.m. for more sacred conversations with visionary women who are here to share their feminine wisdom to support you in living your best life. Until then, choose love, choose joy, choose happiness.
Thanks for listening to Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy. Join our sacred space every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern and meet leading female visionaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. Inspired Conversations with Linda Joy is a soulful venue where guests share the obstacles they've overcome, along with wisdom and lessons learned on their personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic and soulful living.